Attention pro athletes. Want to secure your financial legacy and thrive off the field? Oakbridge Wealth Management, led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, is your dedicated financial planning ally. But don't take it from me. Take it from the Dallas Cowboys' Tyler Biadasz. He says, Chris set goals financially and has been incredibly impactful in my journey in the NFL. Experience our customized, comprehensive approach, trusted by top NFL players. Don't leave your financial success to chance. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE, and let Oakbridge Wealth Management guide you across the goal line.
Bernstein again, big opening, pass 5, pass 10, Vermont's a man, and he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards.
Welcome back to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how you doing today?
Dude, great. Every day's a holiday. I guess not this week because we don't have a game coming up.
I know.
So it's kind of sad, but also I remember those great, bye weekends, and it made me very happy when we had them.
Definitely. Well, we are super excited to have Badgers associate head coach and wide receivers coach Mike Brown here with us today on his bye week. Coach Brown, thanks so much for making some time for us here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Of
course. We've had a bunch of the coaches on. I think you're the last offensive coach that we've been missing. So it's you're the last key to the puzzle there, and a huge key to the puzzle, considering just how many wide receivers are on this team now and how much more integral they are to the conversation and to everything that is happening with Phil Longo's offense. Before we hop into our conversation here, I want to remind you guys that we are presented by BetOnline, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. NFL season, by the time you're hearing this, it's kicking off tonight. It is college football. Week 1 is already in the books. No matter what your sport is, though, they've got it over there at betonline.ag. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we'll just go ahead and sort of hop right into it. I mean, I've got a bunch of we've got a bunch of stuff we want to talk with you about, but let's go back to your life, your intro to the sport of football, because you were, for people who don't know, Coach Brown was an elite receiver at Liberty and quarterback. I mean, how many people are all conference as a quarterback and as a receiver? I don't know. There's not a whole lot, though, is the answer. But even before you're at Liberty, how did you sort of get into the game of football? Where did your football journey begin?
Well, I started playing football. I think I was about 5 years old, and started, playing flag and all those things. And my dad was coach. And so my mom and dad owned a convenience store for a very, very long time. And so, to be completely honest with you, playing sports was my way of not having to work, right? Because it's either I'm going to have to play a sport or work. And, so I played baseball, basketball, football, stayed busy all year round, and ended up doing that all the way through high school and, all the way through my senior year and everything. Football ended up being my love, my true love, and probably the sport that I was best at. And so that's what kind of got me to kind of focus on that path.
And so when you were in your recruiting process, you ended up at Liberty, and Liberty was an FCS program at the time you were there. They've since elevated to being an FBS program. Were you recruited as a quarterback or a receiver?
I was recruited as a quarterback. Yeah,
okay.
I was recruited as a quarterback.
So, but you played both while you were there. And so what was that sort of like to have to, take on a couple different positions as an 18, 19-year-old? I can only imagine how much work that must have been.
Yeah, it was a unique situation. So when I first got to Liberty, I redshirted my true freshman year. And then going into my second year, the starting quarterback was going into his senior year. And he was a good player for us. And so that year I was just kind of, I had a good camp and I had been doing some good things. And so they were trying to find ways just to get me on the field a little bit. And so, they had like a little wildcat package for me that year. And then, I ended up playing a little bit of receiver that year as well, just kind of when we got into some 10 personnel sets and things like that. And had a little bit of success then, and then actually going into the following year, which was my third year, my redshirt sophomore year, I had a surgery, an elbow surgery, a minor surgery, nothing major, and I was slated to be the next quarterback in line, and coach was a little nervous about the surgery and the amount of depth we'd have at the position if things weren't going great. So he decided to go and get a transfer, which I was probably not happy about at the time. So he brought in a one-year guy, and we battled it out at quarterback all spring long. And, it was a pretty good battle the whole way. He ended up, coach's reasoning was he wanted his best 11 guys on the field. And so I started at receiver that year, and then I still had a package of stuff at quarterback. So it's probably about 30% quarterback there. But, I always was in the quarterback meetings. I always met with the quarterbacks, everything. So in my entire career, I never was in, wide receiver meetings and things like that. That ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, man. I played receiver that year, had a really, really good year. And then my final 2 years, it was finally my shot to play quarterback. So it kind of worked out a little bit backwards from the way most people do it. But it was a great experience, and I was surrounded by really, really, really good coaches and great teammates. And so, it's played out well.
It seems like that your experience is something that you can bring into what's going on in today's day and age of the transfer portal and people coming in, potentially coming in front of you and battling it out and potentially waiting, for your time to come up. What's been your experience, and how have you helped the guys today with what you went through?
Well, it's so tough, just with the landscape of college sports now. I won't just say football, but college sports, and the transfer portal adds a whole new dimension. Like when I was in college, it's like, hey, if you want to transfer, you got to sit out a year. And there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it, and it made it harder to leave. And everybody, I think, I don't know, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think a lot of people, at least at some point, right, especially their first year in college, because everything's so new and you don't truly know what to expect, it's going to cross your mind, right? It's going to cross your mind like, oh, man, I was the guy in Pop Warner, I was the guy in high school, and now all of a sudden I'm not playing, right? I was charting plays my first year. So, it's a tough pill to swallow. And I guess my best way of trying to explain it to guys is just sharing my experience. Like, hey, look, I thought I was going to be the starting quarterback. And, I came in my freshman year and, there was a lot of buzz about, we got to find a way to get this guy on the field and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden I redshirt, right? And then again, I go into, going into my third year where now the guy that was in front of me is graduating and I'm the next guy in line. And then all of a sudden here comes a transfer. Right. And so I've experienced some of those things. So sharing that experience, I don't know if it helps or not, but I try to, share that. And then I talk about, I was very upset at the time when coach was bringing in a new guy. But, at the end of the day, I had an opportunity to go down to Jacksonville. And the only reason that I got a tryout there was because they went back to my redshirt sophomore year and watched the game I played against West Virginia and had a really good game as a receiver. Right. And so, I tell people, like, you never know why things happen the way that they happen. Everybody's journey is different, but you got to trust the process, right? Now, with that being said, I think there are, certain situations where maybe there's a situation that isn't right, is a bad situation or whatnot. There's changes and things like that. I understand that side of it too. So, there's benefits for, to it. And there's obviously some things that I think is good for young men to go through a little adversity, to have to sit. And, I think you learn a lot, from sitting behind people and learning from people and waiting your turn. I think there's a lot of character building in that. And I think there's a lot of skill development in that and having some consistency about where you are. And then obviously seeing it from this side, just the team atmosphere, the team building, the trust in the guys that are around you. I think that's the part, that is, it's tough to sustain, if you got guys that are coming and leaving and things like that. And so, like I said, man, there's a bunch of sides to it, right? A bunch of arguments either way. But again, I just share my experience. I share my perspectives. And then, at the end of the day, the young men are going to make their decisions. So,
Coach, you bring up you said coming and going, because it's an interesting year for the Badgers with new coaches, new players. A lot has changed in the course of like 6 months. No more fullbacks, man, that hurts. When you guys get down to the goal line, I'm pumped to see a fullback, but then you got Braylon Allen back there who looks kind of like a fullback, not so much like I looked, but damn, he looks good, man. But you mentioned coming and going, and I've met Coach Fickle and I've heard him speak at a couple of events, and he said he wants guys there, and he wants to keep that room tight. How do you do that in today's day and age? I mean, your experience and what you're saying, I love, but how do you put that into action?
Well, I think it starts with recruiting. To me, everything is about, to me, the most important thing in life in general is relationships, right? And it all starts there. You build relationships with the guys throughout the recruiting process and as you bring them in. Now, is it 100%, full? No, it's not, right? But you build relationships, you build trust. And I think as coaches, it's our job to be honest, right, with where guys stand, whether they agree or disagree. I think it's important for us to be honest with them. And, you try to build a culture that guys believe in, that guys buy into. And when guys buy into that culture, I think it lessens, some of the transfer stuff. I mean, there's going to be attrition every year, right? That's the reality of just about everywhere in America, right? There's not going to ever be a team that's the same the next year or a room that's the same the next year. But you try to minimize that by just being authentic, by sticking true to the things that you've preached throughout the recruiting process and, throughout your time that you've had recruiting and coaching these guys. And I think more than anything, these young men are looking for people that they can trust. They're looking for consistency. And then obviously they're looking for a place that, kind of fits and feels like home for them.
So what blows my mind. Yeah. It just blows my mind from like when you and I played. The only time the room changes when dudes came in every year. And now you're right. It's the NFL. Dudes can come in and out each year. I just think that's it's hard to wrap my brain around since I was in the NFL for a cup of coffee. So I didn't get that go around, but it's just, I feel bad for a lot of kids and I feel good for a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's great for some kids to get out of a situation they really don't want to be in. But man, it's just so hard to. I mean,
Bernie, what you have 2 transfers in your entire time at Wisconsin. One of them was Alex Lewis, who was a JUCO, like him and Brian Calhoun.
And Calhoun. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's very, very different, 2 transfers in 5 years versus whatever, like 16 just in this offseason, I think, for the Badgers. And so you talk about those relationships and in the receiver room itself now, how are you building those relationships with all of the guys who transferred in, all the guys who were there? And then, you've got, new freshman in Tretch and, who you didn't really recruit, right? I mean, like you got to know him, I'm sure, like at the end, but he was recruited by the former staff, for the most part. So what has it been like building those relationships and how is that going?
It's tough, man. I say it's tough just because, the time that we came in, right? You come in, we get hired just before Christmas break. The guys are in bowl prep, right? And so then we go and then, you kind of get to know the guys you're recruiting, the Tretches of the world, even better than the guys that are in the room because, you were kind of staying hands off from the program as far as me, right? Coach Vick was here, but, you didn't get to really see those guys until mid-January. And then our schedule is just so jam-packed. It's like, okay, we're here, it's mid-January, and then I've got to learn an offense. So we're in meetings all day. And then all of a sudden we've got to meet with the guys and prep them for spring ball. And it's like, it's just go, 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 go. And it's nonstop. And so, you don't have a lot of time to just sit down. Hey, man, guys, we had some things, right? They came over to the house. We went and did some things out in the community and things like that. But, we haven't had a ton of time to do things like that. And then obviously once the season gets here, it gets even more crazy, right? And so, from that standpoint, I haven't gotten as much time with the guys, like one-on-one, as I would like. But it's an everyday thing, man. You're building it every single day in the room and just about being consistent with who you are, what you do, what you're preaching, standing behind those things and understanding that, trust isn't something that a lot of people give freely. It's something that's earned. And, we have to earn that from them and vice versa, right? And, those guys got to be consistent and earn trust from us. And I think it's important for us as coaches to realize, though, that we have to do the same, right? You can't just walk into a place thinking, hey, I'm your coach, so you have to trust me. It doesn't work that way. So it's something that's earned every single day. It's earned every single day. You be consistent. And, again, it just goes back to just being authentic and being true to who you are. And I think guys can see that. Guys can feel that. Guys will know if you're not who you say you are. And that'll turn a lot of guys off. And so, it's something that, like I said, you just build every day with consistency.
Attention athletes. Do you want a frictionless and tailored financial planning experience to secure your future? Well, look no further. Introducing Oak Bridge Wealth Management, the premier financial planning firm for professional athletes. Led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, our team provides a unique and comprehensive approach, ensuring your financial success both on and off the field. We understand the unique challenges you face as a professional athlete, from managing cash flow habits to planning major business purchases and navigating complex contracts. That's why we've developed a proven process, working closely with our strategic partners to provide seamless solutions for your unique financial journey. Our services evolve with your career, offering short, mid, and long-term goal setting, portfolio optimization, real estate investments, and more. As you transition to life beyond the field, we support you with career development and philanthropic ventures. But don't just take our word for it. Top NFL players like Chase Boulier, Tyler Biadasz, Alec Ingold, and more trust Oak Bridge Wealth Management to guide them towards financial success. Troy Dye of the Minnesota Vikings says, I really love the work that Chris and the rest of the Oak Bridge group do. I especially like the honesty and transparency when it comes to setting up financial goals and plans that best fit my needs and situation. It's time to elevate your financial game plan. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakBridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakBridgeWM_ANICETE. And join the winning team.
So, Coach, you mentioned learning a new offense. I have to assume this is not easy. You have to learn a lot of different things in the offense. What's the ramp up been like under Phil Longo, and what has your relationship been like with him?
It's been good. Like it's been a pretty good learning curve, right? Because it's different from a lot of the things that even I've played in or coached in. And so there's a lot of things that I had to learn to kind of see the game through Phil's eyes. And, he's done a good job of just, it's something that takes time, right? Something that takes time. And then I'm learning and then it's almost like the next day I'm trying to teach it, right? And so, I tell the guys all the time, I said, listen, man, there's going to be some things that we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to change. This is year one for all of us. We're basically learning this thing together. And so I think when, things like that happen, and it's like that across every room, across the board, all the way, offensively and
Sure.
And so, I think that's why, it takes time, right? It takes time for us to learn. It takes time for the chemistry to truly get built. But it's something that you just keep chipping away at, and you continue to learn and grow and learn and grow. And ultimately, you hope you're playing your best football at the end of the year.
So what do you think has been like the toughest part of that transition for both you and the players in terms of the new scheme? Is it just understanding the playbook? Is it, running different routes? Is it timing? Like, what has been like the toughest part for them to pick up and the thing that you guys have been working most on?
Yeah, I don't think, and again, I'm speaking from the coaching side, I don't think it's super tough to learn, but there are a lot of nuances, right? And, you just imagine a guy that's been in an offense for 2 years, right? Or 3 years. And all of a sudden, they know exactly where the quarterback's looking. They know when they're the first part of the progression. It's not necessarily just knowing what my route is, right? It goes far beyond that. And then a quarterback being, getting in a rhythm and finding trust and understanding and feeling how guys run different things where, there were so many things we had to sort out in the beginning, right? Like, who's going to be our starting receivers, right? Who's going to be starting whatever, and, once you figure that out, and then it's like, okay, well, now we got to get these guys used to playing with each other within the system, get the guys used to the system. And so Yeah, I think timing is probably part of it. But again, it's just more of them getting comfortable and learning all the nuances within, the freedom that they will have here and there, and understanding when it's appropriate to use certain things. And so they've done a really, really good job. These guys are really, really smart, right? Smart football players. And so they picked up on it really well. There's hardly ever a time where guys bust. There's times where guys, may, try something that wasn't applicable to the situation, right? And things like that. But as far as, being in the right places, guys have done a really good job of that.
So if Bernie and I were to come in, walk into Mike Brown's wide receiver room, how would you describe the vibe in the receiver room? Like, how do you sort of run your receiver meetings?
About like this interview, man. I'm the same guy all the way around, man. So, I try to keep it light. I try to keep it as an atmosphere that guys are comfortable asking questions. I'll ask a lot of questions. We're going through the film. Sometimes I'll say, hey, why'd you do this? Just to hear them, hey, why'd you run that route this way? Just to hear them explain to me through their eyes, because a lot of times they can teach me stuff, right? They're out there and they're feeling certain things. They're seeing certain things that, you may not be able to see on the film as clear. And so I think that dialogue is good. And then, me offering them different ways to attack it and different ways to do it. And then we go back to the drawing board and we try it different ways the next time. But it's very interactive. I'm just myself. And, I think we have, I hope they're having a good time in there. I hope they're comfortable in there. They do a great job asking questions. And I think it's a pretty open room.
To me, it looks like they're having a lot of fun because they're playing really well. I mean, from a fan, I always call us couch potatoes because we are now. It just looks like they're enjoying it and playing at a high level. What's been your most excited coaching point from week one to beating Purdue at night? What has been over those 4 weeks, the most exciting thing about the wide receiver room?
Their effort, man. You see guys, we preach effort, right? Effort and attitude is the number one thing in this program, right? And we talk so much about who you are without the ball in your hands, right? It's great when you got the ball and it's cool. You go, you make a guy miss, you score touchdowns and all of that. But who are you when the ball's not in your hands, right? Are you a selfish guy or are you a team guy, right? And so, anytime I look and see a big run on film, I'm like, how'd that happen, right? We got to the third level. What are the receivers doing? And, there's been times where guys are sprinting away from the backside. I think it was Chez had a really long run. It might have been against, was it Buffalo, the crazy one? He kept bumping.
Yeah, that was people. Buffalo.
And all of a sudden, here comes Will Pauling sprinting from 50 yards away, throwing his body out there. And then, he's just as happy as Chez is. Things like that are the things that make me happy, right? Everybody's going to run around and catch balls and do all those things. But the things that nobody came here to block, right, as a receiver. So when they take pride in things like that, it tells me a lot about who they are, and it tells me that they're buying into what we're doing. The other stuff will come, right? The other stuff will come just kind of as they get more comfortable and things like that. But the effort is one thing that's a non-negotiable, and it's something that has repeatedly gotten better and better and better each week. And so we got to continue to build on that, and I think good things will happen from that.
So I know we've only got a couple more minutes here, but I wanted to ask you about Coach Fickell and your relationship with Coach Fickell, because you joined the Cincinnati program, I think, in 2019, and you were with Coach Fickell and those guys for 4 years at Cincinnati before coming over to Wisconsin. And so just talk to us about your relationship with him and sort of why you chose to make the move, because I'm sure you could have had a lot of jobs across the country. What made you want to, stick with Coach Fickell and some of these other guys from that Cincinnati staff and come to Wisconsin?
Well, I didn't know Coach Fickell at all, right? I had never met him, never talked to him, didn't know much about him. I wasn't a huge, know everything about college football kind of guy growing up. I was a guy who was in between jobs, looking for a job, and got an interview. It was like, great, it sounds great. Coach Fickell sounds awesome, And then, I came in on my interview, ended up getting hired. And there's a moment there that really stood out to me. It was one of my first meetings that I had. I don't even know if he'll remember this, but one of my first meetings that I had with the guys by myself, he came and sat in on. And, in the back of my mind, I'm like, not trust me? Like, why is he sitting in the back of my meeting? There's 10 other coaches here, But he sat in there, didn't say a word. I'm running my meeting. I finished my meeting up. And, the guys leave and, he sits down, stays after. And the first question he asked me is, he says, man, all right, how can we make this a better experience, a better situation for the guys? Right. And not me, like not how can, and it was the amount of detail that he paid to, even how the room was set up. Like we flipped the room from facing one way to facing another way and put, different things on the walls. And he's like, I just want to make this the best experience for those young men. Right. And that's been who he's been from that day forward. He hasn't changed. Right. And so I love the way he runs his program. He has guys ready to run through a brick wall. He's got a little bit of old school mentality to him where he's still pushing kids. That was the one thing that really stood out to me, is just about the care for the guys. And, everything that we do is to convenience them first, right? Yeah, we're going to do some things to inconvenience them as well, right? Just to make it a little tough. But at the end of the day, right, there's this grand master plan, but the guys are first, right? And, we come second to that, which is what I believe in. And again, he's done a great job just establishing the culture, maintaining the culture throughout the time that I was with him at Cincinnati. He pushes us as coaches to grow. And so it was a no-brainer, right? It was a no-brainer to not only stay with him at Cincinnati, but then to also come here with him, with a guy that I trust and a guy that has been good to me and treats my family. His wife is awesome. And she's helped us. My wife and I got married my first year there. And, she helped us through that whole process. And everything that they do with the families has been great. My wife loves it. So it's, there's a lot of benefits to it, man.
As long as your wife loves it, that's all that matters.
I guess I should have said that first, right? Oh, my wife.
I have two more questions. You mentioned Will Pauling. I love his play. What's it like bringing him from Cincinnati to come to the Badgers? What's he like in the room? We've had the pleasure of meeting with him. He was amazing to interview. But what's he like behind? Interviews are different than being in the room. And how important was he to come over?
I think he was a very important. He's a good player, right? He's a good player, but he's an even better young man. And I think his impact on the room is far beyond any catch that he's had or, any play that he's made. I guess now I can say any throw he's made. But his impact on the room and raising the guys' level of competition around him, I think has been the best thing about it, right? He's been around me, and I've coached him for 2 years now, or 2 years at Cincinnati before coming here. So he kind of knows what my expectations are. He knows, how I teach things and things like that. And, it's an awkward situation when you come in as a new guy and then you're a young guy on top of that. But you know what the coach wants, and so you're the most familiar, and then to try to be the first guy in line or, things like that just to show the guys, like that's a tough thing to do, right? You're coming in and you don't really know anybody on the team. And, he did a great job with that. And, the things that he did in the weight room, his competitive nature kind of rubbed off on the guys. And I think it just kind of raised everybody's kind of level of interest, level of play, level of competitiveness throughout the entire room. And then obviously it helps that he's a pretty good football player on top of that. So, but love having him here, man. And, all the guys in the room are just great. Like we don't have any bad kids in that entire room, which is the best thing ever. And so I'm looking forward to it, man. I love those guys. Love them to life, man. So.
Well, we love them too because it's exciting to watch. I mean, it really is exciting to watch the Badgers, even without a fullback. I'm okay with it. Coach, my last question. From game one to the Purdue game, it looks like huge offensive steps. I mean, like ginormous. Where do you think this offense could go if they keep working hard? And I mean, like, what is the sky's the limit? Scoring 50 points? Like, what do you think could happen?
Now, if you think I'm going to get on here and tell you we're going to score 50 points, my goodness. No, I think, I do think there's a lot of potential, right? There's a lot of good football players in this offense. We have a lot of potential. We got a long ways to go. We got a lot of things to clean up, small things here and there. But like I said, man, the guys across the board are hardworking kids that are bought in. And when you have that, you have a chance to be really, really good. And so we'll continue to build on it, man. And I guess time will tell, right? Time will tell. We got to continue to be consistent. Obviously, got to stay healthy, and we'll take this thing as far as it'll go.
All right. Well, we'll get you out of here on this on a non-football question, Coach. So something we've asked every coach that's come on here. Since you've come to Madison, what is your favorite place to eat?
Ooh, favorite place to eat. Oh, that's a tough one, man. There's a lot of good places.
That's the point. There's so many good places.
A lot of good places. I'm a big sushi guy. I love Red. Red's a really good one. I'm on like a little sushi tour right now, so I've tried a couple of different ones. Red's probably my favorite so far. Steakhouses, Rare was really good. Giant Delmonico's is really good. I don't know, man. It's too many. Don't put me on that. Don't make me do that one.
Well, if you need food advice, one thing we have discovered is that James Thompson apparently is like the biggest foodie around. So go ask James for places to eat because he has all of the answers. That's one thing we learned at
I was talking to James the other day, actually, and he's apparently a pretty good cook too. So
I'm not surprised.
I may have to get some homemade food from him, so we'll see.
That sounds fantastic. Well, listen, Coach, we cannot thank you enough for taking some time to hang out with us here today. And thank you to everyone listening, no matter where you are watching, and for tuning in to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. And so we appreciate everyone for tuning in. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thanks, guys.